shirts with the dark blue shorts going from left to right as we view it. The Indiana Hoosiers, I'm ready to say Pacers, I'm ready to say them all day. Red shirts and white shorts, and they're going to be going from right to left. The referees are all set to get underway, and the kickoff is about set. The Huskies will take the ball. It's going to be Graziano Cornello and Bill Moroney starting off the action, the whistle, and the game is underway. Bill Moroney kicks it into the Indiana side of the field, and quickly Indiana takes possession of the ball, and they have it right here in early at Gardner-Dow Field in Storrs, Connecticut. Goalie Chris Oswald holding the ball. Right on him is Graziano Cornello. Oswald gets away with a beautiful kick. It goes all the way to Mark Goldschmidt, the midfielder. Goldschmidt passed the ball to Armando Betancourt. Betancourt deep in the Husky territory. Guarding him is Charlie McSpirit. The shot goes wide to the right as Betancourt quickly gets off a left-footed shot. It goes over the goal line, and the Huskies will have the first goal kick of the game with 44 minutes and 23 seconds to go here in the first half of play. Huskies this year with a record of 1-0. Indiana with a record of 2-0. Both of those by shutouts. And they last year had a team had 17 shutouts, and so the Huskies are going to be up against some pretty stiff competition from the defense and from the goalies. They have three goalies who are well equipped to handle the action. Chris Oswald, Chris Peterson, and Steve Wicker. All three of them combined on many shutouts. Wicker is a senior. Peterson and Oswald are juniors, and they should be back next year. A whistle on the play. There was a foul deep in the Indiana territory. And a direct kick for the Hoosiers as Carlos was called for his first foul. Many people might not remember this, but last year, 1 year ago tomorrow, the game was played. The Huskies lost Indiana by the score of 1-0 in a game that was marred by a lot of yellow cards and a couple of red cards. Coach Joe Moroney got thrown out of the game as well as one Indiana player. 9 yellow cards assessed to the Connecticut Huskies in what Coach Joe Moroney calls one of the worst referee games he has ever seen in his life. And we'll see exactly how the referees from the Connecticut area go for against the Indiana Hoosiers, but I know Coach Moroney not very happy with last year's result. Armando Betancourt scored the only goal within the first 5 minutes of the game, and the rest of the game was a shutout. Huskies had many chances to come back, but they just could not put the ball in the net. Right now the Hoosiers have a direct kick in the Husky territory about 35 yards away from the penalty box, and sending it in play is number 12, Mike Hiley. He sends it into the penalty box. It goes over everybody and everything, goes over the goal line, and the Huskies will have their second goal kick of the afternoon. Charlie McSpirit will be taking the goal kick. Last year's game in statistics, we have the final statistics, 1-0 Indiana. Huskies outshot the Hoosiers 9-5. And it saves. Indiana had 5, UConn 3, and 3 corner kicks apiece for both teams. Charlie McSpirit with the ball deep in the Husky territory, passes up to Carlos. Carlos chips it up to Elvis Comrie. Comrie settles it off his knee and passes it back to Jimmy Lyman. Huskies trying to get something started early in the first half here at Gardner-Dow Field. Pedro DeBrito has the ball across midfield, but it's stolen by Greg Thompson. Thompson coming down the left side, pass to Betancourt. Betancourt with some fancy footwork, trying to get it on 2 Huskies. He still controls the ball and gets it over to Mark Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt passes to Greg Thompson. Thompson, the back from Stillwater, Minnesota, loses the ball to the Huskies, and they're going to bring it back the other way. Elvis Comrie with a beautiful heel pass over to Carlos. Carlos is streaking up the field in 1-on-2. Carlos against Danny King in the goal. He goes towards the penalty box, pass on the left side over to Bill Moroney. Bill Moroney slightly loses it over to Graziano Cornello, left side of the penalty box, in the middle to Carlos. Carlos shot, and it's saved. A header away by Indiana as they knocked the ball away, but the Huskies coming with their first opportunity to score in the first half, and it goes away by the boards.
Nice play by Pat McGrawley as he calmly came over in the penalty area and headed the ball out of there. Could have been sure trouble for Indiana here in the early going.
Huskies have the ball again in the Hoosier territory. Eric Myron, the freshman, coming on the left side, passing over to Graziano Cornello. Cornello played man-to-man with Timmy Walsh, and quickly he gets the ball back to Johnny Brubacher. Brubacher over to Tim Maisley. Maisley on the back to Charlie McSpirit. The 4 backs are right around the midfield line, and quickly McSpirit sends a pass into Pedro DeBrito. DeBrito trying to get around Goldschmidt, cannot do so. Goldschmidt kicks the ball over the touchline, and the Huskies will have a throw-in right in front of the Indiana Hoosier bench. Lyman takes a throw-in over to Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit back to Lyman, and Lyman has another give and go back to Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit sends a lob into Pedro DeBrito. DeBrito misses the header, and coming up with the header is Mark Goldschmidt, and Goldschmidt settles it down to the feet of Armando Betancourt. Betancourt with the ball, pass in the middle to Iker Zubizarreta. Zubizarreta is the freshman, as you remember, from Caracas, Venezuela, already has 2 goals this year. He has a heavily taped left thigh, and he's having a little bit of problems with that, but Zubizarreta is an explosive ball player, supposedly filling in for Robert Meshbach, who graduated last year and is now playing professional ball in the National American Soccer League, or North American Soccer League. Last year, Meshbach with 26 goals. Indiana with the ball. And the bit of crowd excitement as Elvis Comrie almost came away with the steal, but Controlling the ball still is Armando Betancourt right in front of the press box. Betancourt makes a nice move around Charlie McSpirit, gets past him, trying to get the pass up to Mike Hyla, can't do so, and coming up with it will be Johnny Brubacher. Brubacher sends the ball back to Jimmy Renahan, and Renahan gives it over to Maisley. The Husky White machine will start the offense up here at Gardner.
With 40 minutes left here in the first half, you have to wonder if you didn't know better, you'd think Armando Betancourt had a string attached to the ball on his foot, like playing around with it. He moves so smoothly with the ball, and I'm sure that's going to be Indiana's motive all afternoon is to get the ball to Betancourt.
Very good point. Armando Betancourt was up for the Herman Trophy Award last year, along with Robert Meshbach and, of course, Joe Maroney Jr. He says it wasn't Jr., but Joe Maroney. And Betancourt is a very good ball player. Betancourt passing the left side over to Pat McGarry. His shot goes over the goal line. But Betancourt is a man who's always around the ball. He's a tough man to defend. And with the Huskies, with their defense not as experienced as last year, we're going to have some problems with Betancourt. Betancourt can take the ball, he can move around people, and he is what you would call one of the a very fine soccer player, probably the best in the country. I have not seen anyone from San Francisco yet, but Betancourt, with his skills and with his motivation and with the way he can get the ball in the net, could possibly be one of the finest soccer players in the country. Jimmy Lyman with the ball deep in the Connecticut Huskies zone. Pass over to Billy Maroney. Maroney sends it back to Jimmy Renahan. 38 minutes and 53 seconds remaining here in the first half. We're scoreless at Gardner Dow. Harold Darak along with Mark Boudreau. Exciting Husky soccer action. This year the Huskies the rankings have not come out yet. Last year the Huskies ranked 5th in the country. Indiana ranked 2nd in the country. In the head-to-head battle last year, Indiana won 1-0. That was played in Bloomington, Indiana. Indiana controlling the ball. It's Timmy Walsh with it, and there's a whistle on the play, a push on the Huskies. I believe they're going to call it on Bill Maroney. And a direct kick for the Hoosiers.
Timmy Walsh and Billy Maroney going at it a little bit there, and just a little early action. If it's anything like the St. Louis game, we'll have plenty of action to detail for you.
Hopefully we won't have 11 yellow cards like last year, though. Header in the zone, but Charlie McSpirit quickly tries to clear the ball away. Almost stolen back by Betancourt, but McSpirit gets around one ball player for Indiana and gets it out to Elvis Comrie. So the Huskies, who had problems defensively all game, trying to clear the ball out of the penalty box, are having troubles to begin with already. And the reason why the crowd is booing is because there was a late call on a push right in front of the UConn bench. But they finally get the push as Elvis Comrie sprawled to his arms and legs. But the Huskies are controlling the ball. This time it's Johnny Brubacher. Brubacher across midfield line for Billy Maroney, but the pass was stolen by number 3, Steve Meyer. Meyer streaking down the side of the field, but a whistle on the play. They're going to stop the clock. And they might be issuing a warning. They're going to be talking to John Brubacher, and the referee is trying to tell him to settle down, or you're going to be getting yourself a little yellow card. Let's not let this game get out of hand already. That's a pretty smart move by the referee. We don't want to see the physical game we saw last game when Carlos was down every other play after he maliciously pushed down one of the St. Louis players. Huskies with the ball. This one's Elvis Comrie. Comrie with trying to get around 2 St. Louis players, can't do so, but they knocked the ball. Excuse me, not St. Louis, but Indiana players. They knocked the ball over the touchline, and Connecticut has the ball on a throw-in. This is Charlie McSpirit crossing midfield. He's trying to get around Armando Betancourt, but a beautiful steal by Betancourt, but both of them go down, and I believe McSpirit's going to be called for a push. No, a dangerous play instead by Charlie McSpirit, but the Indiana Hoosiers end up with the ball, and sending it into play is Mike Hyla. Hyla kicks the ball straight to Tim Maisley. Maisley gets it over to Elvis Comrie. Huskies trying to get out of their own end of the play, and most of the play has been around midfield, except for one Husky chance when they had a shot on goal. But it was a nice save there by the back, and the Huskies could not get the ball in the net. Push called on the Indiana team on the far end of the field. The Huskies sending the direct kick, and Carlos tries to send it deep into the Indiana territory, but he goes out of play. And another push is going to be called. This time I believe it's on Indiana. They're not going to call anything. Maybe that's why Pedro DeBrito is arguing it's going to be a goal kick, as the ball did go over the line. And sending the ball into play will either be Chris Oswald or, I believe, Danny King, the freshman sweeper back from St. Louis, Missouri. And it is King, and King sends the ball a high lobber almost towards midfield, where Eric Myron gets a piece of the ball, but he can't control it, and coming around with it is Greg Thompson. Thompson is being badgered by Eric Myron. Myron almost stealing the ball, and the crowd's going wild. It goes out of play, but Myron's last touches it, and he's trying to inspire this crowd to inspire the Huskies. Iker Zubizarreta has the ball go out of bounds on him, and the Huskies get a throw in very quickly. It's Elvis Comrie down the end. Comrie trying to get around Joe Schmidt. Schmidt playing Comrie man-to-man. He does so for a moment, but he slows it up, and he's using his footwork to send one in front of the goal. Saved by Oswald. Schmidt is going to be guarding Elvis Comrie, the explosive Connecticut scorer, throughout most of this game. But Comrie did get a shot on goal. It was a nice one, but Oswald was right there to make the save. Oswald sends the ball far across the midfield line where it's headed there by Jimmy Lyman. Lyman sends it right to the foot of Iker Zubi-Zareta. And Zareta will see what he could do with the ball.
An observation, Harold, in the early going, Schmidt is walking alongside with Elvis Comrie. They're almost like buddies, and I think it's going to be that way all game. It must be Jerry Yeagley's game plan, and he must right now currently feel Comrie is the offensive thrust of the Huskies.
Right now, Indiana is controlling the ball. Armando Betancourt being guarded by Jimmy Lyman. Sends a pass in the right corner for Timmy Walsh. Walsh playing man-to-man by Billy Maroney, and he sends a shot over everybody and everything. It'll be a goal kick for the Connecticut Huskies. Last year, the Indiana Hoosiers ranked in the top 10 every week of the season. Matter of fact, they've been ranked in the top 10 every week of the season since October of 1976. What a record. They were the Big Ten championships. They were the Big Ten champions for the 6th consecutive time last year and the regional champions for the 3rd consecutive time. So you're talking about a history of defeating very good teams. And Indiana is playing the Huskies right now. A scoreless game here at guarded outfield. Tim Maisley with the ball in Indiana territory. Giving goal. Elvis Comrie. Maisley back with it right in front of the penalty box. Maisley slowing things down. Looking for the Brito, but he's holding it a little bit too long. Finally gets the ball to the Brito in the corner. The Brito trying to get around one Indiana man. He tries to get around Thompson. Sends a shot in, but it's knocked away and it's knocked out of bounds by Greg Thompson over the touchline. And the Huskies have a throw-in. Maisley quickly gets the ball back in the play to Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit sends a lob in front, almost headed by Graciano Cornolo, but getting ahead on the ball is Dan King. It goes over the goal line, and it should be a corner kick. Let's see what the referee calls it. They're going to call it a goal kick, and Graciano Cornolo not too happy about that. As a poor call, as it did seem obvious that the Indiana Hoosiers did touch the ball last in the penalty box area. Or in the penalty area, but instead it will be Danny King, the freshman, sending the ball into play. Let's check that. It's not going to be King. It's going to be number 6, Joe Schmid. Schmid sends the ball into play. It's right around midfield. No one really taking control of it. Now Carlos coming up with Iker Zubi-Zareta, but a push on Carlos as Zubi-Zareta goes down, and coming up with a direct kick will be the Hoosiers. And right now, Armando Betancourt talking to one of the referees, probably telling him, hey, settle down, that Carlos guy is pushing us for no reason at all, which might be a very good observation. Carlos not known to be a clean-cut player, not known to be unphysical.
Ornery is the adjective attached to him, everyone.
Header by Iker Zubi-Zareta. He missed it completely, cleared away nicely by Eric Meyer, but kept into play by Joe Schmid. Schmid on the right side of Betancourt. Betancourt almost had the ball in play, but a whistle. And there could be either a direct kick or it's right around the penalty area. It could be a penalty kick. No, it's going to be a direct kick 1 foot out of the penalty box. And Betancourt is down for a little longer period of time. There's a lot of pushing and shoving. Betancourt went down in a crowd of 3 Huskies. And it's going to be a direct kick. The Huskies setting up a 2-4-6-man wall. And this is going to be the Indiana's best opportunity at scoring all day. Jim Moynihan getting ready, and they're going to get set to put it underway. Iker Zubi-Zareta. No, it's going to be a Betancourt taking a chip shot right wide. And it's going to go out of play. Goal kick for the Huskies, and we have our first substitution.
They had the right idea right there, Harold. Jimmy Renahan didn't really see it till the last minute, and if it was on the mark, it might have found its way into the net.
Mark Laxgang, a sophomore midfielder from Arlington Heights, Illinois, checking into the game for Mark Goldschmidt. Laxgang and Goldschmidt were there was going to be a question between the two was going to be starting, and coming up with the nod was Goldschmidt. But now Laxgang quickly checking into the game. 31 minutes and 41 seconds remaining here in the first half. We are scoreless at Gardnerdow. A beautiful day. Temperatures in the 80s. There's a bit of clouds, but we can see blue sky. The sun is shining, and a beautiful day for soccer. A little bit hotter than last game. Hoosiers controlling the ball. This is Laxgang. Laxgang on the right side to Iker Zubi-Zareta. Zubi-Zareta trying to get around Brubaker. He does so on the right side. He's right along the baseline. He hits a shot right to the head of Charlie McSpirit, who sends it right back to Zubi-Zareta. Zubi-Zareta, right side of the penalty box, trying to get by Brubaker. He can't do so this time. And a push called on the freshman. And the Huskies will have a direct kick deep in their own territory. Looking at Indiana's schedule, after this game, they're going to go home for next Sunday. They're going to be playing the number 1 team in the country, the San Francisco Dons. And looking at the rest of their schedule, they play some pretty tough teams from the top 20 of last year. Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, St. Louis, Wisconsin, and Milwaukee, and Cleveland State. So the Hoosiers do not have any sort of a patsy schedule at all. They're playing the tough teams just like the Huskies. Huskies playing 6 out of the top 10 teams in the country last year. Billy Maroney controlling the ball for the Huskies. He gets it past Eric Meyer, but he overshoots Meyer, and coming up with his Zubi-Zareta. Zareta passes the ball over to Mike Hilo, but a push on the play and they're going to call the push on Graziano Cornolo as Hyla had a little bit of acting and hit the ground.
I don't wonder about that call right there. I give him an Academy Award, though, at least a nomination.
Pass stolen by Charlie McSpirit. He gets it over to Elvis Conley. Conley back to DeBrito. DeBrito loses it momentarily, and we'll tell you a little story about Pedro DeBrito in a moment. Meyer with the ball on the right side. Passes down to Graziano Cornolo. A lot of Indiana Hoosiers down there. Cornolo right side lobs it into the middle looking for Charlie McSpirit. Can't find him. Standing right to the foot of Myron. Myron lobs it over to McSpirit, but is headed away by Greg Thompson and knocked off the foot of Pat McGauley. And the Huskies are in a foot race with Indiana. Finally, Tim Maisley wins that race, and the Huskies have control of the ball. This past week, we saw Pedro DeBrito on crutches, and DeBrito with that bone chip in his foot is hurting badly. And as a matter of fact, if DeBrito does not rest sufficiently between games, he might have to have an operation. So DeBrito carefully watching that foot. He's playing today. He's playing pretty well. Matter of fact, he was just pulled down in the Indiana territory, and it'll be a direct kick for the Huskies. And getting set to check into the game will be Paul Hunter, who is wearing number 14. Hunter, a junior from Storrs, Massachusetts. Huskies getting ready to put this direct kick into play. Charlie McSpirit sends a lob into the penalty area, punched away by Chris Oswald, right to the foot of Bubacher, who keeps the ball in play, but a whistle. And let's see what they're going to call. Offsides in the Huskies, and they're arguing that there was no offsides, but I believe that's exactly what we're going to get. And Graziano Cornolo just can't believe that call, but offsides it is, and an indirect kick for the Indiana Hoosiers. Taking this one will be Danny King. King sends him the play, headed back into the Hoosier area by Bill Maroney. Maroney passes right over to Graziano Cornolo. Cornolo having problems. He hits the ground, but gets right back up. He's going head-to-head with Steve Meyer. Pass to Lyman. Lyman lobs it into the area. Hanger by Conley right in front of the goal. And shot. It's a loose ball in front of the goal, but cleared away nicely by Greg Thompson as Chris Oswald came out of the goal to make the play. Coming up with it was Conley. He had a wide-open goal with a few Hoosiers in there, but none were the goalie. And it's going to turn out the ball goes out of play in the touchline. The Huskies out throwing in the Hoosier territory, and they're trying to start the fans. Conley loses the ball to Joe Schmidt. Schmidt coming back the other way, sending the ball into Connecticut territory, but a whistle and a push is going to be called on Pat McGauley. Connecticut with the direct kick. There was the second in a row opportunity for the Huskies. They couldn't put the ball in the net as Chris Oswald came out of the net just a little bit too much. He was bumped in by Elvis Conley, but it was all legal as Conley was going for the ball. Huskies now deep in the Hoosier territory. DeBrito on the left side being guarded man-to-man by Greg Thompson. He tries to send it into play, but it's knocked away by Danny King. King had control of the ball and now keeps control as DeBrito almost steals it. And King coming down the right side off the back of Myron, but he goes out of play in a goal kick for the Hoosiers. And here are the substitutes coming in for the Huskies.
Checking in for the Huskies, Eddie Lynch, number 13, Jim Diosani, number 15, and Paul Hunter. Coming out, number 6, Carlos, number 3, Bob LeMay, and Jimmy Lyman, and number 9, Gratz Cornolo. Will sit down and take a puff, and I'm sure Coach Maroney's got a little strategy for him.
Indiana also had a substitution, Mike Getman, in the game for Steve Meyer. Getman is a senior out of Bloomington, Indiana, and one of the hometown people for the Hoosiers. And one odd thing to note, Roger Wicker, who is a goalie from Bloomington, Indiana, scored the first goal ever for a Bloomington, Indiana native last year in a 10-0 pasting of Purdue. And Wicker is a goalie. He must have came out and played the forward position. We really didn't get a story on that. But checking the game, another Bloomington man, Mike Getman. Huskies are looking to control the ball. Right now it's a foot race between Joe Schmidt and Elvis Conley. Schmidt wins it, passes it over to Pat McGauley. And McGauley controlling the right and the Connecticut side of play. McGauley passing for a breaking Mark Laxgang. A whistle on the play, a push by Laxgang, and the Huskies will take control of the ball. 26 minutes and 26 seconds to go here in the first half. We're scoreless at Gardner Downfield. Harold Darak along with Mark Boudreau. A beautiful day, and the Huskies trying to win probably one of the biggest games of the season, definitely one of the biggest games of the early season. Later on in the season, the Huskies will play San Francisco at San Francisco. Dorsanio with the ball passing the right side to Elvis Conley, but it's knocked out of bounds by number 6, Joe Schmidt. And the Huskies will have a throw-in right in front of the Indiana bench. Hunter looking to throw in the ball. No one seems to be open. Now he gets it right to Elvis Conley. Conley played man-to-man and being pushed right now by Joe Schmidt. Finally, the referees are going to call it, and the Huskies... No, they're not going to call him out. They're just going to say it went over the touchline, and the Indiana Hoosiers are going to get a throw-in. And the fans really can't believe that because it looked like a pretty obvious push to me. Right now, Indiana controlling the ball. Eddie Lynch and Armando Betancourt racing for, and coming up with is Eric Myron. Matter of fact, since we talked about Armando Betancourt, he has not really seen much of the ball lately. Mike Gedman in a foot race with Dorasanio. Dorasanio wins it. He's coming up in the penalty area. Him and Pedro DeBrito, but it's nicely stripped from him by Danny King, but Dorasanio gets it right back. Dorasanio on the left side coming in, sending it in front for DeBrito. DeBrito had it momentarily over to Eric Marin, but it's knocked away by Indiana. Ball loose, and Bill Maroney coming up with the ball for the Huskies. Maroney trying to get the ball around the area, making a nice move around. One Indiana player kicks in the middle to DeBrito. DeBrito looking for Paul Hunter. Hunter was not there, and coming up with it will be Mark Laxgang. Laxgang looking to pass to a teammate. Stolen by Maisley, giving door from Comrie to Maisley, but Maisley can't get there fast enough. And Indiana sends it all the way back to Chris Oswald, and Oswald will take the ball for the Hoosiers. But the Husky offense looking to start to see some daylight, looking for the first goal of the game.
Nice play by Joe Schmidt as he knocked the ball back to goalie Chris Oswald to stop a streaking Tim Maisley from getting a hold of it.
Whistle on the play is a lot of calling from the crowds. Iko Zubizarreta called for a push right in front of the Connecticut bench, and Joe Maroney yelling at the referee. He wanted to see something called. And the referee's going to blow the whistle again and make sure the ball gets into play at the right time this way.
We're not exactly seeing soccer as it was meant to be played as far as the physical sense of the game goes. Pretty violent, not violent, but a pretty rough game here in the early going.
Well, you might say it's pretty rough, but if you saw a year ago, you wouldn't think it's half as rough as it is today. Because last year, 9 yellow cards and 2 red cards. Matter of fact, most of those cards were had by the first half, so it's a record right now for Indiana UConn games, and we haven't had a yellow card yet so far. Indiana controlling the ball. Greg Thompson sending in a direct kick right to Armando Betancourt. Betancourt passes it over to Mike Hyla. Hyla into the corner for Pat McGolley. McGolley being guarded by Tim Maisley. Sends it up in front of the goal. It goes over everybody and everything, and Mark Laxgang is in a foot race with Paul Hunter, and Laxgang gets the ball. He's in the right corner trying to get some daylight. He goes around Hunter, and it's knocked away by Dorasanio, and Dorasanio steals the ball but knocks it out of over the touchline, and it'll be a throw-in for Indiana, but Dorasanio playing a fine ball game so far. He just entered about 5 minutes ago.
Getting set to check back in for the Huskies, number 3 Lyman, 6 Carlos, and 9 Cornolo. Also number 18 Stevenson for the
first time. Betancourt in front of the goal. Pat McGolley knocked away by a Husky. Betancourt way in the right corner, but he just kicks it a little bit too far away from him, and he goes over the end line, and it'll be a goal kick for the Huskies. And now all these ball players checking into the game, along with a new one for the Connecticut Huskies, number 18 Brian Stevenson, a freshman from Happapaug, New York. And we'll check up a little bit on Stevenson as soon as we check the press guide. He's a new man this year, a freshman. And he is a 5'11", 175-pounder. And he led in 4 years, captain 3 years for his high school, all-league 4 years. He was with the undefeated winner of the Empire State game. So Stevenson checking in the game for his first varsity action. And what a team to come in against, the Indiana Hoosiers. Stevenson with the ball on the left side. He tries to send it into Jim Dorasanio, but it's knocked away by number 12, Mike Hyla. It goes out of bounds, and Stevenson will have the throw. And Stevenson gets it to Elvis Comrie. Comrie can't control the ball, and Joe Schmid comes up with a steal. Schmid with the ball on the right side over to Hyla, but he goes a little bit too far, and Huskies again with a throw in, and again, this time it'll be Elvis Comrie taking the ball, and he gets it right to the foot of Eddie Lynch. Lynch over to Stevenson. Stevenson sends it all the way back to Charlie McSpirit. 22 minutes and 9 seconds remaining here in the first half of a scoreless game between the Huskies and the Hoosiers of Indiana. Paul Hunter sends it back to Tim Maisley, and they're playing with the ball right in front of the midfield stripe. This time Hunter again going back and forth, trying to get it into somebody, and breaking Dorasanio deep in the Hoosier territory. Dorasanio is being guarded man-to-man with Mike Gedman, and Dorasanio looking to get around Gedman. He's in the corner. He makes a move towards the right. Gedman still with him step by step. It goes over the goal line. A whistle blows, and we're going to have a timeout and an Indiana goal kick. But the referee has stopped the clock with 21 minutes and 38 seconds to go, and Jerry Yeagley is coming out. He wants to talk to one of his players. I believe it's Greg Thompson. He thinks that Thompson might be injured.
We'd like to thank our technical director, Al Connor, who's sitting in the studio on this beautiful sunny Sunday afternoon, making sure that we're on the air and everything is
And we'd also like to thank Ray Dixon of the Caribbean Combo for letting us preempt him today. And you can listen to the Caribbean Combo every week except this week and next week. Next week we're playing South Carolina, usually from 1 to 4 on your radio dial. The Friends of Soccer at the University of Connecticut has published a book commemorating the 50 years of soccer at the University of Connecticut. The 120-page collector's item offers complete team, individual, and coaching records along with numerous unique photographs dating back to the university's first soccer season in 1928. We know you will enjoy the comprehensive review and encourage you and your friends to purchase your own individual copy. The book is in a fine place and is collect player autographs after all home matches. If you want to find it and get a book, contact Coach Joe Maroney either in his office or after one of the games. And it'll be a little bit of a donation, which we cannot announce over the air. But it's supposedly one of the biggest and best books for UConn soccer. And it's all there in that 150-year commemorative book. Tim Maisley with the ball. He's being challenged by Armando Betancourt, and Maisley gets it back to Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit gets it into Hoosier territory over to Elvis Comrie. Comrie sends a pass back to Jim Dorsanio. Dorsanio trying to get it back to McSpirit, but it's knocked off the leg of Greg Thompson, and it goes right over the touchline right in front of the Indiana bench. Dorsanio gets a throw-in right to Elvis Comrie. Right side back to Dorsanio, but it was stolen by Greg Thompson, and the Hoosiers control the ball one more time. This is Timmy Walsh. Walsh deep in Hoosier territory, almost trips over the ball, still keeps control of it, and kicks it over the end line, over the touchline. And McSpirit has a throw, and he throws it deep into the territory to Carlos. Carlos, he's right along the baseline, right for the goal. A header just missed by Graziano Cornolo, and the ball goes out of bounds. Last touch by the Hoosiers over the goal line, and the Huskies will have the first corner kick of the game. But Carlos quickly getting the ball in from Charlie McSpirit, sent a lobber right in front of the goal, and Graziano Cornolo just a few seconds late from getting the header. Coach Joe Maloney right over in the background yelling at the official score to blow the horn as Tim Maisley checks out and John Brubacher checks right back into the game. You can hear Maloney all the way up here. At halftime, we're going to have Rich DePreta from the Stamford Advocate. You might have heard of Rich DePreta. He was a former Connecticut Daily Campus writer, a former writer for the Willimantic Chronicle. We'll talk to him probably about a little bit about soccer, a little bit about baseball. He's an avid Yankee fan. As we announced a little bit earlier, Gene Michael has been fired, and the new coach will be Bob Lemon for the New York Yankees as they face the Royals this afternoon. Conway in the corner for the first Husky corner kick, lobs in front of the goal. It's headed away, but a whistle on the play and a push by the Huskies, Carlos. And the Huskies would have had their second corner kick, but Carlos called for the push, and there would be a direct kick right inside the goal area for the Indiana Hoosiers. Clock running with 20 minutes and 5 seconds to go here in the first half. Connecticut trying to keep control of the ball, but Indiana has it passing the right side for Pat McGawley, but it goes a little bit too far for Pat, and coming up with it will be the Huskies on a throw-in as it goes over the touchline. Elvis Comrie trying to get the ball around one player, but it's cleared away by Mike Getman, and he sends it over everybody and over everything over the touchline into the Husky crowd, and they'll have another throw-in, this time Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit for Comrie. Comrie's pushed from the behind, and they'll get another foul called against the Hoosiers, and the Huskies will come up with a direct kick.
Couple of players getting set to check back in. Number 7, Pedro DeBrito for the Huskies, and on his right will be number 14, the freshman, Dave Bonchek. And so he's getting set to check in for the first time this afternoon. Scoreless tie, 19:20 left to play here in the first half.
McSpirit sends a long lob into the penalty area. Dorsanio gets a head on it. Now Cornolo gets a head on it right to the foot of Hunter. Hunter can't get the shot off, and he was pushed down, but there's going to be no call. Another trip trying to come up with the ball is Jimmy Lyman. And Lyman keeps with the balls. He steals it from the Hoosiers. A lot of physicalness right around the Husky penalty area, but no calls. This time is a header by Mark Gedman. It goes over the goal line, and there'll be a corner kick for the Huskies. And DeBrito checking into the game along with Bonchik. Coming out of the game will be Elvis Comrie and the freshman number 9, Iker Zubi-Zareta. So the Huskies will be taking the corner kick, and it will be Pedro DeBrito. Huskies setting it up, another good scoring opportunity for Connecticut. Let's see if they can cash in on it. DeBrito sends a low liner right to the foot of Graziano Cornolo. Can't get all of it, and it's still in the penalty area. It's bounding around loose. It comes to the foot of Dorsanio. Saved by a defender. I believe it was number 4, Danny King, the sweeper back. And he goes all the way out of bounds, and there'll be a throw-in for the Huskies. This time it's going to be Eddie Lynch. Lynch over to Jim Lyman. Lyman was upended, no call. It comes to the foot of John Brubacher. Brubacher sends it in front of the area. It goes through everybody and everything. Over the goal line, and the Huskies will lose the ball to Indiana, who will take a goal kick.
Sanio's shot had goal written all over it. Nothing, you put it on Jug's gun, probably up around 80 miles an hour. It was a streaker. It had to hurt, but luckily an Indiana defender got in the way, at least luckily for Indiana.
Steve Meyer into the game. Coming out will be Mike Getman. Meyer started the game, the junior from Springfield, Illinois, at the backfield position. Goal kick for the Hoosiers. Danny King sends it into play, but an obvious push by Paul Hunter will give a direct kick for the Hoosiers right around the midfield circle. Huskies, after this, will be playing against South Carolina. Next game for Indiana versus San Francisco have a lifetime record against the Dons of 1 win, 3 losses, and 1 tie. And all 3 of those losses have come in the finals of the NCAA championship. Paul Hunter with the ball deep in the Husky territory. He sends a lobber going for Pedro DeBrito, but DeBrito wasn't even close to getting it. It's going to go over the touchline right in front of the Hoosier bench, and Joe Schmid will have the ball on the throw-in. Matter of fact, the Hoosiers have a winning record against most teams they have faced in the in the past, except for San Francisco and St. Louis. Against St. Louis, they lost last year 3-0. Their overall record versus the St. Louis team, 4 wins, 6 losses, and 1 tie. The Huskies have the ball up in the air. Lyman's going to take it on the right side. He gets a header up to Graciano Cornello, and they go into the Hoosier territory. Cornello over to Pedro DeBrito. DeBrito sends it back to Carlos. Carlos, a lobber into the penalty area. Nobody's there around for anybody, and the Danny King, the sweeper back, will take it for Indiana. King with the ball, foot race around with Pedro DeBrito. DeBrito almost stealing the ball. Lynch trying to come up and steal it, but King still has control of it. And finally a whistle and a push called on Carlos. Carlos King, who kept control of the ball, will keep it for Indiana as they'll have a direct kick around the midfield position. Indiana last year, after defeating the Huskies, it was the first of a 7-game winning streak. Then they lost to St. Louis, make that score to 3-0. And then they won 14 in a row before being eliminated in the NCAA tournament in the finals by the Dons of San Francisco. They played some very good teams last year. Wisconsin, they beat 2-0. But Charlie McSpirit gets it, steals it, and they're going to bring it back the other way. Jimmy Lyman, right side to Graciano Cornello. Cornello's going to have to save it from going over the line, but he can't do so as McSpirit overshot Cornello. And it'll be a throw-in right in front of the Indiana bench.
Getting set to check in Eric Myron, the freshman for the Huskies, Elvis Comrie, and number 2, Greg Kennedy, getting set to check in for Indiana for his first time this afternoon.
Huskies with the ball. Carlos controlling it. He almost lost it off the side of his foot. He's going to take it right around the midfield circle and try to set up a play for the Huskies. 15 minutes exactly to go here in the first half of a scoreless game. Remember, not one goal has been scored off the Indiana goalie Chris Oswald this season. Oswald played most of the first game versus Vermont. He was substituted for by Chris Peterson, and he played all of the game versus Boston College. Centering pass to Pedro DeBrito right in front of the goal. He settles it down his foot, kicks it around, but Chris Oswald just stretches his arms out after falling down the play and makes the save. DeBrito really didn't get all of his foot on that one, or we could have seen goal number 1 for the Huskies. But Oswald makes the save, and Oswald kicks the ball out. And he kicks it right to the foot of Jimmy Lyman. Lyman gives it over to Paul Hunter. Hunter looking for Carlos. Carlos gets it to him, but Carlos can't control it for very long. It's knocked away by Indiana, and Armando Betancourt has it. We have a 3-on-5 break for Indiana. Betancourt kicks it downfield. Charlie McSpirit gets it there, sending it all the way over the touchline. Not yet. It was saved by Mark Goldschmidt, and Indiana has it in the Husky territory. Goldschmidt kicks to Mike Hyla. Hyla passed the ball over to Dave Bonchik, a whistle on the play, and a push by John Brubacher. Brubacher hasn't really done much in his first game and a half with the Connecticut Huskies. Not making many great plays at all. He's not even been around the ball that much. I think most of this second half of the first half, or the second quarter, has been played right around the Indiana goal or towards the midfield. Not really much offense for Indiana. Charlie McSpirit heads the ball away in the goal area, and Paul Hunter is going to kick it over the head of Mike Hyla, but Hyla doesn't keep it very long. And coming up with it is the Huskies, and this one's going to be Graciano Cornello. Cornello sends it over the touchline, and it's going to be a throw-in right in front of the Connecticut Husky bench. Number 11, Greg Thompson with the throw-in. He's going to send it all the way in to Pat McGauley. McGauley is a goal-scoring threat. McGauley can't keep it for long. The Huskies have it. They're still in the penalty box. They're still fighting for it. Coming up with a foot on it, Mark Laxgang, the corner kick for Indiana, their first of the game.
Laxgang went down in a heap around the goal area, and for a second there it looked like maybe a penalty kick, but we're setting up a corner kick on the near sideline. 12:56 left here in the first half.
2 players we expected to see for the Hoosiers this year are not in uniform form, at least at this game. Manuel Gordy had 9 goals and 1 assist as a freshman last year, and Keith Meyer earned a letter last year. Here's a goal kick now, kicked away by Eric Myron. A beautiful play, but it's kept in by Danny King. He shoots it over everybody and everything. And a goal kick for the Connecticut Huskies. But as I said, Manuel Gordy with 9 goals and 1 assist had some academic problems. He is not at the Indiana University School this year. Keith Meyer is now playing on the junior national Olympic team. And he is not in uniform, and he is not with the team as of yet. He'll join them a little bit later on in the season. Huskies with a goal kick, and Jim Renihan gets the ball back, and he outlets the ball on the throw to Elvis Comrie. Comrie for Eric Meyer, but it's knocked away by a Hoosier and settled to the foot of Armando Betancourt. Betancourt fighting with the ball with 3 Huskies. He still has control of it, and he's going to pass the ball on the left side to Mark Laxgang. Whistle on the play as Betancourt goes down, and they're talking about the official, the fans cannot believe the call, but Maroney was called for a yellow card as he was called for a push from the behind of Armando Betancourt. And the Huskies fans are reacting very wildly. And right now, Joe Maroney is going at it with Coach Jerry Yately. They're yelling at it back and forth. They can't believe it. The call is back and forth. The Husky fans are behind Joe Maroney, but Bill Maroney nonetheless gets a yellow card with 12 minutes and 3 seconds to go here in the first half.
Coach Maroney sporting a new clipboard after last game's fiasco, and he broke his clipboard. He keeps those guys in business, as Harold said earlier.
Yellow card to Billy Maroney, the first of the game. Remember, this time last game, there was about 9 yellow cards issued so far, so a little bit less physical than last game. But then again, last year, Huskies were told you there wasn't any physicalness at all. It was just the referees. Well, we'll see what happens. A direct kick right around the penalty area. The clock ticked down to 12 minutes and 3 seconds. And taking the direct kick will be Dan King. Remember, Rich DePretta, my halftime guest. We'll be talking about baseball, soccer, and whatever he knows about. He knows much. And Danny King gets it into the penalty box to Armando Betancourt. A whistle and a push by the Hoosiers, and the Huskies will have a direct kick.
I believe the call was offsides on that one.
Okay, we'll go with that. Offsides, indirect kick for the Huskies. And taking will be Jimmy Renahan back to Charlie McSpirit, back to Renahan. Renahan could start up the play. Remember last time the Huskies played a game here at Gardner versus St. Louis, they let down with about the last 10-15 minutes to go, and St. Louis tied the game up. The Billikens came back and tied it, and they almost won that game. The Huskies had to come back 2 more times. Armando Betancourt with the ball. Man-to-man with him is Jimmy Lyman. He comes down the left side trying to get around Lyman, but Lyman's still with him. A lob, centering pass right in front, and the ball goes over everybody. Knocked in the goal! It's knocked in the goal as Indiana scores by number 2, Greg Kennedy. The ball is bouncing loose in front. Jimmy Renahan got a hand on it, but he couldn't keep the ball from going in, and Greg Kennedy scores the first goal of the game for the Indiana Hoosiers.
I might have to think Armando Betancourt might get one of the assists on that play, but it's hard to tell. That ball was bouncing around. Jimmy Renahan was up in the air, and luckily for the Hoosiers, the ball came down on the head of Kennedy, and the ball went in the net. So we have a 1-0 score, 11:18 left to play here in the first half.
The assist went to Mark Laxgang at 43 minutes and 42 seconds here in the first period. So the Indiana Hoosiers up by 1. Huskies are going to have to do something to try to get back in this game. They still have 10 minutes in the first half and all of the second half, so they can't rush it. And the Huskies take the kick in. This time it's Greg Kennedy who just scored that goal. That might have been the first time he touched the ball. And the Hoosiers get control of the ball as it was almost stolen by the Huskies. But coming up with it is Chris Oswald, the goalie for the Indiana team. Chris Oswald, step for step with Graciano Cornolo. Oswald goes by Cornolo, gets a kick almost to Billy Maroney. Maroney couldn't control it. It comes on the foot of Pat McGauley. McGauley sends a pass to Laxgang. Laxgang gets it over to teammate Greg Kennedy. Stripped from him by Eric Myron. A push call by Myron. And the fans really on the cases of the referees. Indiana quickly gets the ball back in the play. Eddie Lynch calling for a dangerous play call, and he finally gets it. As a kick by the Indiana teammate almost went to the face of Eddie Lynch.
Pat McGauley with the foot up in the air, that could have really injured him.
And it looks like this game's going to get a little more physical. Pedro DeBrito trying to get control of the ball, but there's a whistle on the play and a push from behind by Greg Thompson. So a direct kick for Connecticut about 20 yards out of the penalty area, and Pedro DeBrito will be taking it. No, make that Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit right side of DeBrito. DeBrito looking to get it around. Somebody gets it back to McSpirit. McSpirit with a wide open shot towards the goal. Gets it for a header for Comrie. Comrie gets the header up, but it goes over the goal line, wide to the goal to the left. No score for Connecticut, and we're still 1-0 here with 9 minutes and 55 seconds to go in the first half.
Here in the early going, seems like casual play, Harold. The Huskies just haven't looked that hungry here in the early going in their offensive end.
And as I said, they have let down. It seems like every time last 15 minutes of the halves, in both halves, they have seemed to have a little bit of a letdown. And again, Indiana taking advantage of this and controlling the ball and scoring the goal. This time, Greg Thompson gets the ball in the air. Indiana controlling it with headers back and forth, but Timmy Walsh settles it down, and he's racing down the field on the right side. Walsh still controlling the ball, looking to get it to teammate Pat McGauley. He does so, and coming out of the goal is Jimmy Renahan. He loses the ball momentarily, but dives on it again as McGauley comes back for it. But Renahan's probably one of his first couple saves of the game, and Renahan outlets the ball this time to Elvis Comrie, but it's quickly stolen by Joe Schmid. Schmid sends a pass back to Paul DiBernardo, wearing the unlucky number 13. DiBernardo over to Greg Kennedy. Kennedy holding the ball back to DiBernardo on the give and go, and DiBernardo coming down on the right side. Pass up front for Greg Thompson. Thompson sends a chip right into the mid part of the field over to Pat McGauley, but cleared away nicely by a Husky defender. Headed back in by Indiana Hoosier player, and this time headed in by DiBernardo, but a one-bounce save by Jimmy Renahan. And Renahan elbows the ball on the left side to Eric Byron, if Byron could catch up to it. 8 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the first half. It's Pedro DeBrito controlling the ball. Indiana 1, Connecticut nothing. Harold Darak along with Mark Boudreau. A beautiful sunny day at Garnet Outfield. 4,500 to 5,000 fans at attendance here today in a lovely Labor Day weekend game. Elvis Comrie gets a hand on the ball, heads it right to the foot of Greg Kennedy. Kennedy losing it momentarily, but coming up with it will be Mark Laxgang. Laxgang controlling it, almost getting stolen by a hustling Carlos, but Laxgang sends it back to Steve Meyer. Meyer chips the ball into the Connecticut area for Greg Kennedy. Kennedy loses it to Bill Maroney, but Maroney sends it over the touchline, and Indiana will have the throw in this time again in front of the Connecticut bench with 8 minutes exactly remaining here in the first half.
Getting set to check back in for the Hoosiers, Armando Betancourt. Number 2, Timmy Maisley, getting set to check back in for the Huskies.
Joe Schmidt gets a pass into Mark Laxgang. Laxgang tries to send it into the middle, but it's cleared away nicely by Eric Myron, but headed back into play by Joe Schmidt. Ball bouncing up and around and finally settled down by Eric Myron, and the Huskies trying to make another chance for an offensive opportunity. Danny King gets a foot on the ball, sends it back into the Husky zone for Charlie McSpirit. McSpirit almost lost it to Pat McGauley, who had a clear shot right to the goalie. Right to the goal if he made a few steps with that ball. The ball still bouncing around loosely, coming up with a Timmy Walsh. Walsh can't control it for very long as he sends it over the touchline. And the Huskies will have a throw in right in front of the penalty, right in front of the press box.
Earlier today, Betancourt was sporting a taped leg. He has since removed that tape, so I don't know if it was he had a taped leg. Maybe it was some heat put on it before, or the heat gel. No.
John Brubaker controlling the ball. He gets it over to Pedro DeBrito. I don't know about Betancourt. I didn't know that Iker Zubizarreta had
both
one.
Of them.
Was it both of them?
Yes.
I did not notice that.
During the warm-ups.
And a shouting match between the Husky fans and the referee as they're calling the Indiana team for the push. And the Huskies felt that the fans felt it was a little more than just a regular push. But no call by the referee. The Huskies will have a direct kick in the Indiana zone. Clock running, 6:34 to go in the first half, and taking the ball in the play will be Jimmy Lyman. Lyman in front of the penalty box, headed by Graziano Cornolo, but it's bounding around loose. Greg Kennedy with it, almost thrown by Myron. Myron Kennedy still with it, a whistle on the play, and they're going to call a push on, let's see who. If it's Indiana, it could be a penalty kick. Who's it going to be called on? No, it is going to be on Indiana, but right outside the penalty box, 1 foot outside the penalty box. These referees do not want to take 2 nationally ranked teams and decide it on a penalty kick. And that's exactly what happened. What would have happened if they called it inside the penalty box, but it's resting right on the line. And Pedro DeBrito will take a direct kick right on the line for the penalty area. And the Huskies are setting up probably their best opportunity of the game. Make that three-man Indiana wall. And DeBrito taking a shot into the goal area, knocked away by DiBernardo, right back to DeBrito. DeBrito heads it in play, but it's headed away and out by Joe Schmidt. It's still in the air. Carlos pushed from behind. It's still loose in front of the goal. Goes wide of the goalie, Chris Oswald, on a shot by, I believe, Elvis Comrie. But was knocked off the leg from an Indiana Hoosier, and let's call it a corner kick for the Connecticut Huskies.
Elvis went down in the heat, but I don't believe he was pushed. It was more or less, hey, ref, look at me. I went down, and he never was touched on the play. In fact, he was giving up about 3 inches on that header, so we had no chance for it, and I think the best play was to fall down and play dead.
Dorsanio checks in for Graziano Cornolo, and Tom Thompson getting ready to check in. He's a freshman from Connecticut. He's getting ready to check in for his first action. DeBrito with the corner kick to Comrie. Incredible play by the Connecticut Huskies on the corner kick. Pedro DeBrito sent it right into Elvis Comrie, the header into the goal, and the Huskies have tied this up with 5 minutes and 3 seconds to go in the first half.
That ball had goal written all over it. In fact, if he didn't head it in, it probably would have hooked in itself. It was curving, and it made it that much easier as the Huskies tied up at 1.
39 minutes and 57 seconds into the first half. Elvis Comrie scoring his first goal of the year from Pedro DeBrito on his 4th assist, and the Huskies tie the game up at 1-1, and the first goal of the season scored off any Indiana goalkeeper. This time it's Chris Oswald, and the fans are pretty excited as the Huskies take the opportunity to put the ball into the net. A beautiful play, and we're going to possibly be tied up at halftime unless the Huskies let down right here. And Indiana sends the ball into play. Betancourt gets it over to Danny King, who sends it deep into the Husky territory for a racing Paul DiBernardo. DiBernardo man-to-man with Tim Maisley. Maisley almost loses it right in front of the goal. Kicked away by Jimmy Lamb, and the Huskies seem to be letting down as Indiana's putting some pressure on the Husky goal. This is Greg Thompson. Shot in front of the goal. It's getting right to the foot of number 5, Tim Walsh. Walsh kicks it to the foot of Billy Maloney. It goes out of play, but the Huskies are not marking their men inside the penalty area. If they let down one more time, we could see a 2-1 ball game.
Very good point, Harold. That's exactly the difference right now. The Huskies have not marked their men in front of the penalty area, while Indiana have marked very closely, and that's the big difference. While it has quelled any Husky attempts to score.
A corner kick by Indiana. A lob in front of the goal for Betancourt. It's headed in the area, but a save by Renahan as a beautiful shot by, I believe, Joe Schmid. Send it right to Armando Betancourt. Now the Huskies racing with the ball the other way. Dorsanio coming down a 2-on-3 break, coming down the left side. Dorsanio looking for, I'm not sure exactly who that is on the Husky side, but he